Okay, YouTube, this is part 3 of my journey into Goddess. Um, Michelle, uh, the goddess that attached herself to me, um, when I started researching her as to why a Mayan goddess that I'd never heard of would be walking with me and had chosen me, basically. And I felt that I was chosen. So I felt honored, but I knew nothing of her and I wanted to know about her. So when I looked it up, it said that she was a beautiful woman who was married to the sun, and the sun was very jealous and accused her of having an affair with her brother and killed her. Um, the dragonflies came and sang her back. Took 3 days, but hovered over her body and sang her back to life. She came back. She came back as the moon, and he was forever destined to chase her through the night sky, or chase her through the sky in general. So she is a moon goddess. Um, she wears a snake on her head. She wears jaguar claws. She is a midwife. She is a goddess of healing. She is a fertility goddess. One of her other animals. So she's got the jaguar, she's got the snake, she also has the rabbit. Um, she has some very significant um, um, things to her, but one of the things that it says that every Mayan woman, still to this day, has to make a pilgrimage to her temple. And they leave her an offering, and this is so that she knows them and attaches herself to them, so that she can ensure that they have a safe and healthy, productive childbearing years, and bring forth their children healthy and survive the childbirth with no problems, and also to protect them from any abuse that from a man that they would be with. So I thought, well, if one of the significant factors is that you have to go to this temple, and I'm like, I've been to a temple. I didn't know how in the world she would have attached herself to me. Um, I would assume, like with any goddess, that you can do energy work and bring her in. I'm not sure that the temple would be the only place that you could do this, but I hadn't called her in. Um, She did have some of the traits of Hecate, so her energy wasn't all that unfamiliar to me. Um, but I didn't understand. And then I remembered when I looked up where her temple was, it was on the island of Cozumel. And I had been there. I was there in 1986. And it was a cruise that my husband had won as part of a bonus to his job. And it was the first real vacation I'd ever had, and it was the first time I was going to be without my children. They were young teenagers at the time, and I had never been separated from them at that point. And I'd had 3 children in 3.5 years, so it was a long journey into motherhood. Wouldn't trade any of it for the world. But as all mothers know, it's not always easy and it's not always fun and games when you're raising 3 children, especially that close in age, because you don't have any kind of break and you're you're so consumed and they're all in one age group. So it's like they're all in diapers or they're all, everything is it's 3 times everything. But most of my wisdom as a crone now was because those things happened in my life. So I don't regret any of them or how they played out. I don't even regret the years I spent with my husband because, again, he also played in that journey and he played in that wisdom that I gained. But when we went on that trip, I was determined to enjoy every bit of the trip. And um, down from the first plane flight that I would have ever taken was that time. And when we got to the airport, the first thing they tried to do was hand me a baby carrier. And I handed it right back and said that if someone was bringing a baby on this plane, they could hold their own baby. So he said, oh, well, we thought you had a baby. Well, I don't have a baby and I don't want a baby. We get to the second airport in Dallas, they wanted to know what I did with the baby. I said I didn't do anything with a baby. I don't have a baby, and I want y'all to quit trying to give me a baby. Well, they were concerned that I had dumped the baby in the bathroom or abandoned the baby. And, so there was a little bit of a fiasco, but it didn't dawn me at all. I wanted to still have fun on this trip. But everywhere I was going, they were trying to give me a baby. And I was starting to see that kind of symbolism going on, and I didn't like it at all. Get to Miami, and we get on the cruise ship, and when we get finally to the room, there's a porta crib set up between the beds. And I told the guy who took us to our room, I'm not going in there until you remove that. And he literally had to go in there and remove that instead of send somebody back to get it because I wasn't going into the room with the porta crib in there. When we get to Cozumel, now my husband is not wanting to be there. He's an A-type personality. He was a smoker at the time. He couldn't smoke on really anywhere on the cruise ship, and he wasn't going to be able to smoke a lot. And he was already getting anxious, and he was already trying to be in a bad mood and doing his normal routine with me. And I was still trying to be happy about everything. And now all of a sudden, everywhere I went, they were trying to give me a baby, and my anxiety was starting to get up. And we ended up landing in the island of Cozumel, and it was gorgeous and it was beautiful. And we had this funny Indian guide, Mayan Indian guide. He was so hilarious, and he was making me feel a little better. But my husband was still all upset and making problems. And we get to the other side of the island, and he takes us to a fertility temple. Now, I didn't hear the name Michelle, and I didn't hear anything at that point because I went into a rant into my head. And that was where I started screaming. It had brought up all of the emotion of this marriage. It had brought up all of the things about being so overwhelmed as a woman with 3 babies, and all the things that I'd gone through were going through my head. And it wasn't that I was doing anything outward. I wasn't. I'd gone deep inside myself, but inside I was screaming. I was screaming for help. And I was on her sacred ground screaming for help. And she gave it to me. She attached herself. These are some of the pictures. I don't know if we can get them. This is one of the buildings on her site. This is another view of the temple. You get the glare off the picture. And this is one more of the site itself. Somewhere in here is where they actually purify the new husband and wife to be. They put them in a sauna and they basically steam them for like 7 days. It didn't look very pleasant because we were there, get this, in from Samhain to around November 7th was our trip. So I was in peak thinning of the veil time. I was Day of the Dead time. I was all of those aspects. And where was I in a sacred temple screaming for help from a goddess who listens to abused women? So she attached to me with a vengeance. And my journey with the shell started, even though, like I said, I was totally unaware and now everything was going backwards. And I want you to know that I never did find out the significance of July 14th other than every July 13th I prepare myself for that nightly visit. Um, and recently I found a representation of my Jaguar head. It's jeweled and everything, and so this is why this is placed on my altar. This is a sign of respect for a shell and that second dream that the Jaguar head was given to me as a gift. The shadow work that ensued after the divorce basically came to a culmination because when I had the bicycle accident, I got up and I walked away from it. I told the ambulance people that I was having a bad day. I had dirt in my hair and I was going home. They told me I dislocated my shoulder and that if I didn't go to the hospital, I would never move my arm. I told them if I can't move my arm in a few days, I'll see you then, but I'm having a bad day and I'm going home. I did not want to spend 4 hours in an emergency room. And I did. I went home with my stubborn self. I often joke that she pushed me down that hill because I wasn't listening to her. At that time, I had caught him with a phone number in his wallet, and it turned out to be a phone number of a stripper. So that I could have walked away at that point in time, but I was still scared to do so. I was a fighter. And this is one of the things that I had to learn in my shadow work, that you have to be careful what you fight for because sometimes you get it. You get exactly what you fight for. And I had fought for this marriage for 29 years. I was with him a year before that, so it was 30 years I was with him. 29 years was the marriage. I have to tell you that the shadow work did entail a lot of this kind of stuff. I had to understand my stubbornness and where it came from, and when stubbornness was good, and when stubbornness was bad. The shadow work that I did, I do feel she pushed me down that hill to wake me up. I don't mean to say that a shell is an evil um, type of goddess. She's not. But I did need a wake up call. And the injury to my shoulder, to give you some idea of the nature of the accident, I was going around 55 miles an hour down that hill when I had the accident. And I landed on my left shoulder and it shattered it. I did not know it shattered it until 11 years later. When it finally froze up after the divorce. It froze up 2 months after the divorce. And it took me until October of 2009 to get the shoulder replacement that I was going to have for it. And that's where my shadow work began. Was having that operation again in the month of Samhain. When the veils are thinning, when you start doing your shadow work, and it was deep and intense shadow work. But it wasn't something I probably would have ever done myself. So the I guess the next part will be the shadow work and how she helped me through it. But again, I'm going to end this video now since it is now 15 minutes into. Blessed be every day.